lower drug costs for Medicare and Medicare recipients by 40 to 80%. We want to extend that to working age Americans. So again, it's going to be an opportunity if things go the right way in terms of the final results that will unfold, as I said, later this evening or over the coming days. So I want to end by, first of all, thanking our amazing campaign team, which came together to do the field work, the voter contact, getting information out to folks. My campaign manager, Grace Brangwin, who's, you can raise your hand, Grace, for the great work that you did. Our field organizer and data geek, Adam Richardson, who, again, was tireless in terms of his efforts. And the field team, which was Lindsay Del Brito, Evan Boissonneau, Chris Brown, and Jennifer Crowell. All of them just did an outstanding job.
All right, we're going to come back here now to do a little analysis. We're hearing Joe Courtney speak in the 2nd District race as we watch many of the races here in Connecticut tonight. The 5th has really been the most contested. And given everything you've seen tonight, especially with what's happening in Torrington, where we've had some polling irregularities and the biggest polling station in the Army had to close down, what do you guys think about how the night is going so far and what we're in for as far as when we're going to know anything?
Well, I do think we're in for a long night and probably a couple of days ahead. This is the first time that we've had early voting here in Connecticut, so it's the first time for this as election poll workers will be counting those early votes. We had 740,000 people who voted early and over 100,000 absentee ballots. But I'm optimistic in the 5th Congressional District with Congresswoman Hayes. I think she really ran a great field effort, was all over the district, had a really strong campaign, and I'm optimistic about the numbers that are coming in and that will continue to come in throughout the 5th Congressional District. She really owned the ground in the game, and 2 years ago it was tight. 1,800 votes is nothing in a congressional race, but I think she really built upon that and worked really hard. And as we had noted earlier, when you have funding that's being removed from your campaign, as George Logan saw in the last couple of weeks with national Republicans pulling away from him, and I saw a groundswell of support for Jahana Hayes, I'm optimistic that she'll be winning tonight in the 5th Congressional District.
Demis, what do you think about how the night is going to progress?
Well, we've seen what's happening in Torrington, and we're not going to see the largest polling place votes in for a while. And that's, as we've also mentioned, has moved much more Republican. So I think that would be a benefit to George Logan. So again, it's not how we start, it's how we end. And there's a lot of votes to be counted before anybody should consider this a done deal.
You were out doing campaign conversations, Dan Haar. We did that, you know, throughout on our Eyewitness News Evening News. What were some of the most surprising things you heard? I know sometimes you actually look surprised with what voters told you.
To me, the biggest surprise was how big an issue immigration is. And I had, you know, we all know intellectually, we all know in our heads it's a big issue nationally because the Republicans have nationally made it a big deal. But the degree to which people on Albany Avenue in Hartford and on Main Street in Southington and you know, in every town I went to, people are concerned about immigration, in part for some of the wrong reasons and some of the right reasons, right? There's a belief that there's this massive crime wave that isn't happening, but on the other hand, there is concern about people coming in undocumented, and that is a concern. So that's the biggest surprise I found, and I would say overwhelmingly that was a bigger issue. I didn't hear the word Ukraine in 6 days, covering 6 cities all day in 6, I didn't hear the word Ukraine.
Okay. Well, we're going to go out to one of your partners in campaign conversations, which is our chief political reporter, Susan Raff, and she is covering Jahana Hayes in the 5th District. How's it going there? Anything? And I'll ask you the same question, Susan. What's going on there right now, and anything that surprised you the most when you were out there covering all the campaign conversations?
Hi, Kara. I was listening to what Dan Haar said, and I agree. I don't think I heard anything about Ukraine, and in fact, I didn't hear too much about what's happening in the Middle East with Gaza, but we did hear a lot about immigration, the economy, taxes, and reproductive rights. And when it comes to reproductive rights, I think that's what Jahana Hayes is hoping, that people in the 5th District will be loyal to her for that one reason. You know, it's codified into law in our state's constitution. People here in Connecticut feel very strongly about that. But one of the things that we found out here on the campaign trail earlier today is that there are people out there who don't know George Logan, actually in the Waterbury area. We asked several people at the voting location. We were at Crosby High School. People weren't exactly sure who he was. However, that's not indicative of the district as a whole. In fact, as you know, George Logan did pretty well against Jahana Hayes 2 years ago and lost by only some 2,000 votes. He has pulled money out of this race, or I should say the national Republicans have pulled money out to the race, but we are told that he was fundraising up until this last minute, the last few hours here today. We do know that Jahana Hayes has been advertising. She has spent about $1 million more than Logan, so she did take this race very seriously, and we should, because this is a very contentious district. It is purple in some areas, and I think what Jim Tickey brought out is very true because of early voting, for example. That's an issue. It may take a long time to count some of those ballots, but people were very excited here when they heard that, Senator Murphy had been declared the winner. You can hear they're watching television behind me. Courtney had been declared the winner, and so there was a lot of excitement here, and people were really hoping that Jahana Hayes' race would be called, but at this point it has not, and people here in this room are hoping that it does not go very late. But I think because of early voting, I think because there are 41 towns in the 5th district, it could take a while, so this could go very late. So we're going to throw it back to you and continue our coverage, and I'm sure we will check back with you soon.
Absolutely, Susan. I know our team is saying that they see couches here in our studio and they're happy to stay on them because it's going to be a late night. So, Susan, thank you so much. If you're having an election party, I definitely would say bring out some more food because nobody thinks this is ending soon. We're going to go to Channel 3's Stephanie Simoni at the big board. She's at our very cool presidential board as she can just touch the screen behind her and presto changeo, we get a lot of information.
I didn't even have to touch it that time, Kara. Of course, we've been watching this map very closely. We are here with our presidential historian. And right now, of course, they need 270 to win. That is the road to the win. And if you are a Trump supporter right now, you are very happy with what you're seeing. However, Harris supporters should not get too nervous yet, as those cities have not yet reported. So it's still anyone's game, still very early, of course. The white you see here, these are toss-ups. The light blue leans and or the light blue, pink leans, and then the called are the darker shades. I want to talk about what's happening to our neighbors to the north. New Hampshire, Maine, very interesting what we're seeing here. 57% of the votes are in, and it's leaning toward Harris, but it hasn't been called yet like other northeastern states. What do you think is happening here?
Well, this is New Hampshire. This was going to be closer for sure. It is expected to end up in the Harris camp. That being said, the last time New Hampshire went for a Republican was back in 2000. So this would be a big shift if it went for Donald Trump. We would want to focus on the large population here in Hillsborough County, the cities of Manchester and Nashua. And Harris's lead in this county suggests that is likely how the state is going to break.
And I have something also, another state I wanted to go to, Maine. They have, it's interesting there, when you see these little ones with the circles, the two, this means that they actually split their electoral votes. Something that Nebraska also does. Just 2 states do this, right?
That's right. Maine and Nebraska leading the way in what might be the future of the Electoral College for now. Just these 2 states. You'll see it on the screen as D1 and D2. These are typically one an urban area near Portland and the other the large northern, mostly unpopulated part of the state that has its own county. We can only really look at county level elections here, but Cumberland County, this is the one to watch. This is Portland area at 14%. It's why the Harris team probably thinks they have a chance here, and it looks right now to be going her way.
Very interesting. And, if we still have a lot to come in. Arizona. 49% right now. Interesting, because the polls just closed there relatively recently. So we're seeing Trump leading it, but not by a lot, just about 1,000 votes. I mean, this is going to be close.
This is Maricopa County. See if we can find it here. We're just checking it out. For those who remember, these names come up once every 4 years. Maricopa County is likely going to side this election. Look at this margin. It's razor thin. How this breaks, likely Arizona will go to.
And because of these split states, Nebraska splitting their electoral college votes, Maine splitting their electoral college votes, you said there is a possibility of a tie in electoral college votes.
Is it midnight yet? Are we talking about a tie yet?
What happens in that situation, that scenario?
First of all, let's remember there's a lot of votes to be counted, and there's a lot of math to be mathed. That being said, there is a way in which the college does break with an exact tie. We've never seen an exact tie before, so it would be unprecedented ground. However, what we understand constitutionally would mean the House of Representatives would decide this thing on a state, one vote, 50 states, 50 votes. If there's a tie, which could happen, someone would break the tie, and that would be the vice president.
And that would be unprecedented, correct?
Yes, it would.
Like everything in this election in the past couple of years. Unprecedented. That seems to be the word that keeps coming up. Let's take another look at some of these toss-ups here. Michigan, this was predicted to be called early. In 2020, it went Democratic. Only 23% of the votes are in here, and we're still waiting on numbers from Detroit, correct?
I mean, Wayne County. The fact that Wayne County right now is showing a Trump lead shows just how many votes are. This is a solidly Democratic district. This is the Detroit metro area. But Oakland County, which has been another bellwether, and Macomb County are changing. But for the first time, I'm seeing now, actually, Vice President Harris leading in Macomb. This is the traditional bellwether for the state of Michigan.
Interesting, interesting. So we will obviously keep watching that. Still a lot of votes to be called in, something that probably, at least a lot of experts are saying, it will not be called tonight.
Probably not, and we're running out of daylight here.
Yes, people like to go to bed, usually around 1 or 2 in the morning. That's my experience with election night. Oh, I think something just, this just got called. Iowa just got called for Trump, which was, so Seltzer was wrong. This Seltzer poll was wrong.
Let's pour out a seltzer for Seltzer's career. She went out on a limb on this one. I was skeptical too, and I mean, here it is. It's called for Trump.
Yep, which, I mean, was anticipated. In 2020, let's take a look at went to Trump too. So, yeah. All right, so of course we will keep watching this map as the night rolls on. We are watching the balance of power in the Senate, as that is still up in the air at this point, as well as the House. The House, so many seats in the House haven't been called, including the 5th district right here in Connecticut. So, Kara, we're going to toss it back to you.
Okay, thank you so much. Hang on for a second, guys. I know you got stuff to say, but right now we want to talk about any of the problems that have been going on throughout the day. We've asked all of you to call us here in the newsroom, to email us. One issue could linger past Election Day. Investigative reporter Cassidy Williams joins us to explain, as she has been investigating your reports tonight. Cassidy.
Kara, this is an issue we first told you about on Sunday, and now the Secretary of State says it's possible what happened in North Stonington could lead to a lawsuit. More than 1,000 early voting ballots were potentially not signed. Voters were asked to come back to make sure their ballot was properly filled out. There are around 200 people who did not come back, but there is not yet a final number on how many people's votes may not count. This is something the state says they will be looking into over the coming days, and we will continue to follow this as well. Kara.
All right, Cassidy. Cassidy, thank you so much. I want to bring in our analyst right now because we've got some time where we can really dive in. We're hearing from the national perspective. We just saw Iowa get called. I just want to bring in because I know you're focusing on Connecticut. However, you also have a lot of knowledge about what's been going on. And let's just talk about Iowa. The big poll that came out showing Harris was going to be ahead turned out to be wrong. We just got Iowa called for Trump. Did that surprise you, Themis?
Well, the fact that it showed she was ahead in the first place was kind of a little bit of a unicorn, since either one of them had been there, and it was a little bit of a surprise to everybody. So it's not really a surprise that he won it, because it would be a state that he would win.
Okay, and he did win in 2020. But both of you have a lot of experience watching Northern Virginia, and that can be a bellwether for the presidency, especially if you're going to be a Democrat. You need to really do well in Northern Virginia. So that's what, every time I see the board, you guys are really focusing on Northern Virginia. Right. Can you explain that to our viewers?
Because Northern Virginia is you know, where a lot of government workers are, where you know, it's a different education level, that kind of thing. So if the Democrat is not winning in Northern Virginia, then that tells you a lot.
Right, you got to win in certain areas, right? You don't have to win everywhere, but you have to win in particular places where every past Democratic president has won. You want to win there, and you also, people are taking a look at how much you're winning by. People are looking at the Clinton numbers versus the Biden numbers. How well is Harris doing in comparison to those? And in places you're going to lose, because you can't win everywhere, you want to try to mitigate those losses, so that if you're losing a town or a county, can you mitigate those losses and make it up elsewhere?
Well, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, just to catch the viewers up with the chatter at the table when we're down, is Virginia is a relatively fast counter. And as I recall, in 2016, Virginia going for Trump was really the early harbinger of his win. It wasn't over at that point, but it was like everything at that point was a matter of waiting. And likewise, the margin in cities really matters. When we see 78% for Harris in Philadelphia, that's a warning sign.
Meaning that she needs to be in the
more than
80s.
She needs to be over 80. Right, and so these are the types of things that we're looking at.
So, just keep in mind, in 2020, we went until Saturday morning until we got the presidential result. So it does take time.
Pennsylvania's slow.
Pennsylvania's slow, and so this might take some time till we really see what we're working with.
So, but let me ask you, at this stage in the game, is this what you expected, or would you have thought that Harris would be doing better by now, or this is about what you expected?
Honestly,
well, she needed to do better is the point of the story, if she's going to win.
Well, it's so much outstanding. So much is outstanding. I mean, every poll had it neck and neck, and that's what you had to believe, that every single poll had it neck and neck. There was no poll that had anyone well ahead, and we knew this was really a ground game, and we still have so many of the votes that are out. So obviously we need to be doing well in the places that we need to do well in, and see if she's on track for the Biden numbers of 2020, or if she's off by that, where is she making that up?
Then, as we're talking about, that a lot will depend. I mean, we know that we're getting some record turnout, and the question was who turned out. Was it a lot of women? Women tended to vote for Harris. As you're watching these early returns and the analysis come in on the boards, are you getting any thoughts or pictures about where this turnout went?
Well, it's about, as we talked about, who turned out, but who didn't turn out, right? So it's just as much both sides. And I would imagine if Harris is doing as well as she needs to do, and to our conversation, use Pennsylvania as a great example. If you're not winning a city like Philadelphia by a large amount, you can afford that's we may not find out till Saturday or another day, but that's a trend. Right? It's a trend in a direction she doesn't want to go in. And so you need to win the cities and the places that you are the strongest by a lot to counteract the places that you are weaker. And so that's where we find trends. And if she's not doing that, then that's not a good trend for her.
And she needs to win the Latino vote by a whole lot, especially in the Northeast, because of the comments at the Trump rally at Madison Square Garden, which has riled up the Puerto Rican community. I spoke with Miguel Cardona, the U.S. Education Secretary, who was in his hometown of Meriden today, talking about he was just in from Pennsylvania. And he's saying that the Puerto Rican communities in Pennsylvania are charged up. That may be from a standpoint of the leaders, but if they're charged up and don't turn up, it doesn't help her.
Okay. And we just heard that in Michigan that Trump is winning with Latinos like 65-35. That's a huge trend.
So we will see what happens.
Direction.
We'll see what happens. Right now, I'm just going to move on over back to Luke Hydash, who has been covering in southeastern Connecticut what's going on there. We want to check in as you cover the second congressional district race. Luke?
Kara, good evening. Joe Courtney just finished speaking to his supporters and people who worked on his campaign over the last few months here in Norwich. And he didn't exactly outright declare victory, but he did say the way things are looking right now, with the way that the polls are coming in, or the results are coming in, that things are looking good for the Courtney campaign, and he's confident in a win. I did just hear from the Mike France campaign up in Danielson not long ago, and they tell us we are going to continue to track returns as they come in. It is too early to know one way or the other, but I expect Joe and I will speak before the night is out. That is from Mike France, the Republican challenger for the 2nd Congressional District, from his watch party up 395 in Danielson at the Elks Club there. Again, Joe Courtney very confident with the results that have come in so far tonight. It looks like a Joe Courtney win according to his campaign, and he is confident in a win, but no outright declaration of a winner yet, and the AP has not called this race either. That is the latest in Norwich. Luke Hydash, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.
Luke, thank you so much. We're going to be checking back in, I know, on Eyewitness News at 11. Stay with us as more results come in. We got about 2 minutes left of our special streaming program. Thank you all for being here. And I know, Dan, you have something that you'd like to chime in about something you just got information on.
Yes, our reporter Andy Bly in Greenwich is reporting that even though the AP count is a little behind, still at 7,000, and has Nick Simmons ahead in the 36th. That's the Senate seat in Greenwich, New Canaan, and Stamford, crucial seat. Fazio is pulled ahead, according to Greenwich Republicans, 53% to 47%. Still a lot of outstanding votes, but that does include some hand-counted early votes. So it's, you know, he's pulled back ahead. So
Okay.
that's...
And, you know, staying with Greenwich, we have a first-term Democrat that seems to have lost to newcomer Tina Corpus. Did I mention she was Greek?
Yes.
I just want to make sure everybody understands that. And so I think it's interesting that we originally saw with the AP that Ryan Fazio was behind. And then once we got Tina Corpus's numbers, you know, they both seem to have moved up. So consistently.
We should say he's the Republican.
Okay, well, so Jimmy, can you sum it up for us as far as where things are going? I know we still got to count everything. We've got, especially with Torrington shut down from some of these, we got a hand count now, but as far as where Connecticut is leaning locally.
Right, I would say first, be patient. We have a long way to go to count all the early votes that came in to really understand where these races are at. You're hearing that some candidates are up based on the election day votes, but that may not include the early votes, which are sizable in a lot of communities. So we're seeing, you know, Republicans maybe pulling ahead in some of the races, but also Democrats having a good night. It sounds like in Stratford, Milford, part of the Naugatuck Valley, and we're still waiting on pieces of the 5th Congressional District to come in, but I'm in touch with the Hayes campaign, and they're taking a look and seeing how they compared versus 2 years ago, and there is optimism there, and I too am optimistic about Johanna Hayes' chances in the 5th Congressional District. But again, it's a long night and days ahead to really understand where are those early votes and how does this stack up. Okay,
Less than 30 seconds. Themis, is there any trend that you're seeing? We're talking about trends nationally, but any trend you're seeing in Connecticut?
Well, we've seen in the House, as we mentioned in the beginning of this program, that the numbers are looking like they're going to stay almost the same, maybe 1 or 2 members either way. We're looking at the Senate and similar. We're seeing of the 3 targeted races, all 3 of them look like they're going to hold their seats. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of change in the House and the Senate in any substantive way.
Okay. Dan Haar, Themis Claridis, and Jimmy Tickey, thank you so much, all of you. This has been our extended election coverage. We want to thank you for tuning in. I want to thank all of you. I know we're going to continue and bring you in for some analysis when Eyewitness News at 11 begins. But we appreciate you being here. Dan, I'll let you have one last word, too, and if you can keep it less than 20 seconds.
I'm not so sure about that House. It takes 3 or 4, no, I think it's 4 seats to go to a veto-proof majority, and that's something to watch. I know you're confident, but I'm not so sure about that.
I'm cautiously optimistic.
Democrats can win. Democrats can win a couple more seats.
Okay,
right,
we'll
and
see.
we can keep ours.
The counting's going to continue. We've got comfortable couches here. I hope you will settle in. Eyewitness News at 11 will be